And it's like, I would love nothing more than to get like, a trans cast member or something like that. Or
For
just
sure.
like
Really stick it to her.
Yeah, just to be supportive of the community and be like, look,
That's
that's
a
we just
great
like the
idea.
genre. We're not J.K. Rowling team.
I wonder what the trans fan community. I wonder if how that's affected everything. Like if you're a trans person and a huge fan of Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's conflicting, I think, at the very least. Like, we know Riley Silverman, she's a stand-up, and she actually used to open for us at some of our weird, like, comic book nerdy shows and stuff like that. But then she feels very betrayed by the Harry Potter franchise and does not want to be involved in any way anymore. And it's understandable.
It's really sad.
Totally understandable. It is sad. What is not sad is that we are having an episode of AI Affected. So welcome to the podcast. This is the podcast is loosely about AI. Mostly I talk to artists about how AI is affecting our lives and relationships and work. My name is Russ Guberman. Today's guest is a phenomenal performer and improviser, but he's also a director. He's also a former content manager for the NBA and a very well-to-do Houstonian. Please welcome Michael Garcia.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks
That's
for being
such a cool
here.
intro. It's like your life is all just put in front of you. Like this is how people see you.
Yep.
I appreciate everything you just said.
All right. It's your bio in a second.
Yeah.
Oh, and like here's my I'm contractually obligated to do this. So
of course.
Before we get started, let's talk about Sharby coin. Sharby is a cryptocurrency that is based on the Arbitrum network and is community owned. The Arbitrum network is a layer 2 solution that's better than layer 1 from what I've heard of Ethereum that aims to increase scalability while maintaining the security of the Ethereum network. Layer 2 solutions, it's going to explain itself. Layer 2 solutions are protocols that increase blockchain capacity and speed by processing transactions off the main Ethereum blockchain, which is layer 1. The market cap of Sharby is approximately $5,129,000, and the total supply is, I hope I'm reading the zeros correctly, 1 trillion Sharby. The current price of 1 Sharby, as of May 21st, 2003, this is for a time, is... How many zeros is this? Let's say it's 46 100,000th of a penny. Sharby can be traded on the Sushi Swap platform on Arbitrum One network. Also, we've heard, and the scuttlebutt around here is that this was actually founded by the girlfriend of the founder of Shiba Inu, which was like one of the biggest viral tokens of the last year. Of course, based on the virality of the Dogecoin and Elon Musk's support of that. So this is right in the family. It's right in the family of Doge and Shiba Inu. One of the unique features of Sharby is it provides passive income to holders in the form of USD coin, USDC on every transaction. The model is also known as pay to hold, or HODL, as we say in the crypto industry. Sharby has strong community behind it. It's raised $1.2 million to support their project. It's presented as a safe investment with features like a renounced contract, a 10-year liquidity lock, a CertiK audit, a multi-signature wallet for community funds. Furthermore, the tokens are fully and evenly distributed. Please note, we are not financial analysts, and this is not financial advice. We just really excited about this Dogecoin.
Yeah. Amateur.
Sharby.
I'm an amateur
Yeah.
when it comes to that stuff.
I'm an amateur. I got some Bitcoin.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's sad. Most people who are my age and have Bitcoin, the story is, I could have had more, or I had more, and then I had, like, electric bills that I had to pay in 2012, and I did it with Bitcoin, and that was a bad idea.
Man, same old story. That's how, prospectors in the 1740s were, 1840s
Yeah,
were.
who knew the gold nuggets were going to be such a big thing?
Yeah, they had to sell them to pay rent. That's how it happened.
It is quite sad. So it's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Now, to me,
Yeah.
you're like this legendary improviser.
Wow.
And I know that you have this whole other life as like a music video director, and you work for the NBA, which I never really talked to you about and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to know how you got into one of the hottest improv shows, which used to be called Cherry or Cherry Bomb.
Cherry, yep.
Yeah.
Cherry at I.O. on Monday nights from like 2011 to we stopped in 2017, I think it was.
And that show, not only was it popular just to go to the theater, but it's like full of like big time commercial and TV actors and some of the funniest people in the city.
Yeah, we had a thing where we would invite friends to come play with us, but then we also had a student component where we would have a Cherry Crush, we called it, where we would have 4 or 5 students that we would draw from the crowd and then put, like you said, TV actors, other really good improvisers from the theater, and do a show. And it was a way for students to get to play with more experienced and talented people to see what that's like. And also just to get stage time. And we were very proud of that format. It helped to, I think, foster a community there and foster a community with our team and younger teams and players. So yeah, it was a good time. We had you guys there a few times.
Yeah. Drunkards had a little run on that show.
Yeah.
That show was like the Voltron of ways to put people in the seats for an improv show.
Exactly.
So you combined a cage match, which requires that you have your friends show up to vote for you so you can win the cage match. A jam, which means that if you're sitting in the audience, there's a chance you get to play at the end, and then your amazing show is right in the middle. Yeah. So it's like you couldn't get away from it.
I mean, you know this as somebody who's been promoting shows for so long. There are certain things that sometimes you got to pull out of your back pocket as a producer in improv to like get people to a show, and those are the three like top ones. Is like if your theater isn't getting people to a show, we got to do a cage match. Mm-hmm. We got to do this. So we were just like, let's do them all. Let's do them all, and it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. The Oreo cookie of drawing people to a theater show.
For sure,
ran for a long time. So what brought you to improv initially? Was it something that you did when you just moved to LA, or how did you?
No, I lived in Houston my entire life before I moved to LA, and at the time you mentioned I was working with the NBA. I was working with the NBA at the time, and I was traveling pretty much 6 to 9 months out of the year. So it didn't really matter where I lived. And at the time I was acting in Houston. I was writing and doing short films and that sort of thing. And I had always wanted to move to LA, and I figured if it doesn't matter where I live, where I'm paying rent, then I should make the move while I can. Made the move, loved it, ended up staying here. That was 13 years ago. But back in Houston, I was part of a group called Massive Improv. There was a guy who moved there a few years before who was from Chicago, and he had literally trained with Del Close and was at IO for a really long time and ended up moving away. And he started an improv group in Houston. And I, along with like 4 to 5 other people, were like the core group of people that we started. And for 2 to 3 years, we just did shows. We practiced. Like, I mean, you know how this is. This is like when you first start improv, you want to practice every day of the week. Mm-hmm. We would practice 3 to 4 days a week for like a couple hours. And so it was like, it just became a part of my DNA of like, oh, I need this. This is fun. I'm learning about myself and like other people. And so that kept going for a while. He ended up moving away. I ended up being the artistic director for about 1.5 years before I moved here. Mm-hmm. And it just got me in love with the art form. And I began to see it as an art form. You talk to improv, you talk about improv to people, and a lot of times lowest common denominator wins, right? It's whose line is it anyways? It's comedy sports. It's like short form. A lot of people don't point at long form. They don't really know what it is. And I just fell in love with the storytelling aspect of it, being able to play characters. I'm kind of a self-taught actor. I mean, I had acting classes in college and school, but I always felt like improv is what trained me to be an actor. So yeah, I just fell in love with it. Moved out here specifically. I wanted to see if I was good enough to be at IO. I always held it up in high regard, the Chicago IO.
How did people in Houston, because I'm always curious about this, like we know that Chicago is the heartland of improv, and dinner and an improv show is kind of a regular happening in Chicago, but maybe not so in LA or in other cities. So like how was it regarded in Houston when you were there?
It's tough. A lot of people really didn't know what it was other than Whose Line, right? So we would have to sell it as that first and then get them out. After a couple years of doing it, we started to get a little attention. We started to get newspaper articles, stuff like that, of like this new kind of art scene that was happening in Houston. And at the time, Austin started having a really big community because a lot of people from Chicago and New York were kind of ending up there. And it ended up creating this really huge, fast-growing improv community that spouted off like 3 to 4 different theaters. So a few of us from Massive in Houston would travel up to Austin and do shows there every once in a while. So it just became like we were learning from them. We were learning like how to build that community. Mm-hmm. We didn't have enough people to do multiple theaters, but we had enough where we were doing a couple nights of shows each week. We had a specific location that we were working with the entire time. where we did classes, same place as shows. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard. We were getting like, at our peak for us, a great night was packing a room of 50 to 60 people, a small room.
Yeah.
So
But
for us,
that's
that was
a very
great.
solid crowd.
Great, yeah. For us, that was great. But yeah, it was hard in Houston.
Now, Houston has had this the city has kind of had this explosive growth, and I don't know exactly what the timeline was. Like, was that happening back when you were there, or has that been more recently in the last decade that it's become like, whatever it is, the fourth or third largest city or something like that in the country?
It kind of started right when I moved out here. It was getting an influx of a lot of oil and gas college students that were just graduating and going out there. So it has flipped a little bit out there. Obviously, Texas is a red state.
Yeah.
But it's turning blue with the help of Houston. Houston's one of those progressive cities that's starting to turn a little bit. But yeah, that started about a decade ago, I'd say. Yeah.
And so do you think that helps or hurts or is ambivalent to the improv that exists in Houston?
I would think it helps because anytime you have a younger group of people in a city, I think they're always looking for something different. And improv is one of those things where if you latch onto it early, it's something that can show you different ways to filter comedy and news and current events. And I don't know, you know how it is. I just think improv is a really cool art form that sometimes gets shit on when it doesn't deserve to be. Like a lot of stand-up people just shit on improv, where it's like, yeah, I don't think improv needs to be shit on.
Well, you know what my opinion on that is? I mean, first of all, obviously, there's no shortage of bad stand-up.
Exactly.
There's no shortage of bad improv. But there also isn't a filtering mechanism like you have in these other traditional art forms. Like, there's no newspaper of record that goes around reviewing improv teams and shows.
Yeah.
So they go, oh, well, this is a 4-star show, and I know what I'm getting into. It's all kind of word of mouth and random and who can promote the best, but there's no, like, objective anything that you can point to going, oh, well, these guys won a Dell Close Award or whatever, so I should go see them.
I think anything that you find like that, it's always theater-centric, so you don't really know where, like we had the Dells at I.O., but that doesn't mean anything to
That never made it out of the building. Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything to UCB or, any of those people, so yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of, I don't know what, governing body or a newspaper
we need like the
of record.
IOC of, or like a Beckett's, like a pricing guide where you can have ratings for teams and stuff.
That is a terrific reference.
Yeah.
Are you like a baseball card guy?
Oh yeah, huge. Growing up, like Ken Griffey Jr., like that time, rated rookies,
Oh, yeah.
Mark McGuire, like all those.
No, we're in this a similar strata there.
Yes.
I had I don't know, must have been for about, I would say like 5 to 7 years between when I was like 8 and 15. I was like really heavily into, which unfortunately now when you look back in the parlance of baseball cards, they actually call that era the junk wax era.
It's crazy
because of all the overproduction of cards, because of the boom of
But I look now and it seems like there's so much more stuff out now.
It's better now.
Is it?
I mean, I don't collect actively, but at least they understand how to create rarity. So they have like all these one-of-one jersey cards and signature cards. Like, they get it.
I do like that stuff, but I have read articles where a lot of those things are like, you know how you'll see a card and it's like game-worn jersey, Patrick Mahomes. A lot of times those things are like, they'll put them on for one play and then take them off and shit like that, where it's like, but it's still cool. It's still cool.
It's still cool.
Yeah.
God, I remember one of the first things that I did was I bought an older pack. So I had this baseball card store in my neighborhood where I went to high school that sold old sealed packs, which is the most fun.
Yeah.
It's legalized gambling for teenagers and children. So I bought a 1983 Topps pack, and this was, 1991 or something like that. And so the first card that I opened up in this pristine 8 or 9 year old pack was a Ryne Sandberg rookie card.
Yes.
And at the time, that was like one of the one or two best cards that you could get in the set. Yeah. And I was hooked.
Were these was that top set? Is that the one where the team names are real big on the top?
That is 1986 Topps.
Okay. That's the Barry Bonds rookie. Yeah.
That was like 1986 Topps, but it was like the limited after season series. Yeah. The 83 was the one with the little circle in the corner with their like face photo in it, and then the regular photo was on the rest of the card.
All right. Yeah, it was during that whole era.
We can get into the weeds, buddy.
I kind of transitioned over to basketball cards, so I still have a box with, like, I just went through it the other day. Mostly basketball stuff. Like, I have Shaq rookies, I have Mark McGuire rated
90,
rookies.
92, I think.
92, 93, right. And then they had that one you had to mail in for. Like, I have that one.
Nice.
So it's like I have some decent ones. I have a Skybox Team USA, the Dream Team. I have that, which is great, but used to be worth a lot more than it is now. So, yeah, it's curious.
Yeah, similarly, Mark McGuire's true rookie card was the, like, 1985 Team USA card. Yeah. And that for a while was like, oh, that's $200. You have that card, $200. And then, of course, we went through the whole steroid thing, and it's like nobody wants that.
I know.
Nobody wants that anymore.
Yeah, man.
Unless you live in St. Louis, I guess.
Even there. Even there. Unless you live in his house. But, yeah, so baseball cards are cool, but it seems like now there's cards for everything. Mm-hmm. There's, Marvel cards, and there's Harry Potter cards.
Yeah, and Pokemon is huge.
Yeah, so you go to, like, a comic shop, and there's all these... that too. So cards, seems like that whole thing has exploded. It seems like it explodes every, like, 10 or 15 years or so for each generation. Mm-hmm. Something kind of explodes in that collectible market. For us, it was baseball, basketball, and now it's starting to get more into Pokemon and pop culture and movies and TV and all that stuff. So, I don't know what you do with a Captain Marvel rookie card.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody like me who's, like, a big baseball fan, and it's at my age... to get context on how popular baseball is versus, like, people playing League of Legends online in a tournament, it's like, I think League of Legends is as popular or more popular than baseball.
Yeah.
But, baseball has some control over the levers of power in, like, the marketing and TV.
Yeah.
But in terms of just raw audience... I think that we're going in a different direction, maybe.
Oh, and I think the demographics of that are where you see, like, the big shift. It's like younger people are all doing what you're saying. All the old people love baseball. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And somehow baseball's doing a terrible job of, like, allowing games to be cut into YouTube clips and letting people mash up and letting the audience play around with it. Like, that's a huge... because the NBA has been really good at this.
Yeah.
They're good at allowing these kind of fan involvement and people posting highlight clips, and baseball's like, we control everything, and so the YouTubers have kind of abandoned them.
Yeah, the NBA really embraced, internet and video and TikTok and all these new platforms that come out, where I think a lot of the other leagues aren't quite as eager to jump on these bandwagons. Mm-hmm. So as a baseball fan, are you the type of baseball fan that, like, watches games? You know what I mean? Because, like, not everybody can watch a whole baseball game.
It's a hilarious question, that the way that you asked it.
Yeah.
Because I like baseball in the abstract. I'm not going to watch a game. I just like the thought of bases. No, I think because of the nature of it, because it's slower and more pastoral, it's kind of a thing that you have on ambiently in the background, and then you watch every pitch in, like, the ninth inning or in the playoffs or something like that. But no, even when I'm super into watching a Yankee game, I'm not watching every pitch of the game. Even when I'm there, if I'm at a game, it's about having a conversation and reminding people of the infield fly rule and talking about history, and that's kind of the pace of a baseball game, as opposed to, like, here's what the act. So the whole, like, all the pitch clock and trying to speed the game up seems to be kind of self-defeating.
You don't like it?
No, because it's like, that's not, like... what makes baseball, and again, this is maybe just old man head talking, then nobody cares, but, like, what makes baseball special to me is that it is not time-based.
It can go on, you don't know how long it's going to happen.
It's event-based. There's a famous episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine where this alien race who doesn't understand linear time comes in, and Captain Sisko, he explains linear time to them by showing them a baseball game. And he's like, look, he's standing there. He doesn't know if the ball's going to get to him yet. And this is the beauty of linear time. And I'm like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. All right. I think I'm a fan of the pitch clock, but I will say I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a huge baseball fan anymore. I'm only a huge baseball fan recently because my Astros have been really good.
Oh, I was going to say maybe you're not a baseball fan because of the Houston controversy.
No, that bothered me and everything, but I feel like everybody cheats, so I'm like, I'm not in one of those boats where it's like, oh, we're a cheater. We did cheat, but I feel like everybody else cheats too. We're just kind of getting the shit of it. But baseball has, it's fallen off a little bit just based on rules, and they haven't quite aimed their game at the younger demographic like basketball or football has. And so I think the pitch clock is that's the goal. Is like that's our 24-second clock.
They're trying. I also hate the ghost runner on second base.
I do hate that too. Yeah, I play MLB The Show, and I hate it every time that happens. I'm just like, this is not right.
Let me disable that
exactly.
at least.
Yes. Yeah, it's not right.
You just in the series that the Yankees just played against Toronto, there was a big kerfuffle over Aaron Judge hit a home run a split second after he peeked at his dugout.
Yeah,
because apparently they'd figured out this pitcher was tipping his pitches, so somebody in the dugout
yelled at him.
I don't know if they yelled or somebody's just like putting up finger or like whatever, and it's like, yes, that's part of baseball, and it's somewhat different than using like a camera system.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Blue Jays were super mad, and then Aaron Judge hit like 5 more home runs in the series.
Did they think he was looking at the catcher?
No, he was looking at the dugout.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes batters will peek backward
to try to see what his fingers
where
are
the
doing.
catcher, or just to see where he's set up outside,
Exactly.
inside. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd hit him. Just hit him. Just hit Aaron Judge as many times.
Can you tell me a little bit about your work with the NBA as a content director?
Yeah. So I started. I had just lost my job in Houston. I was an event coordinator for a restaurant company. And I was, at the time, still acting. And a friend of mine sent me an audition for, didn't really know what it was for. We just knew that the All-Star Game was going to be there later that year. Saw an audition, NBA stuff. So we went, ended up being an audition for like hosts, like on-court hosts. For
are these the people that like during the game come on and do like promotions?
Yeah,
and things
dance
like
teams, all the hosts, the trivia stuff that they do with fans, those sort of things. So it was like, okay, cool, yeah, that sounds fun. So we went and did that. Auditioned, they liked us, me and a buddy, ended up hiring us. We worked All-Star at an activation. I was doing like a Radio Shack event where it's like a countdown, 3, 2, 1, whatever. You've been to Jam Session.
Was this affiliated with Shaquille O'Neal, or was it just straight up Radio Shack?
At that time, it was just Radio Shack. Okay. Yeah. So they would have different stations.
It'd be a missed opportunity.
Yeah. They would have different stations with different games and activations and prizes, and each one would have a sponsor, and they would have a host for each one. And so that's what it was for. So I worked the whole week. All-Star was a blast. We got to do player interviews that would come to our station. We got tickets to the All-Star Game and dunk contest. Like, it was super cool. And then at the end of that, they offered us jobs to like travel around the country during the summer and host these like basketball festivals. We were called NBA Nation, and it was like the world's largest traveling basketball playground.
Wow.
And so I would like be the host of that. So players would come, dance teams, mascots. We would have concerts, celebrities come out, games, give away lots of stuff.
So this was kind of a community outreach kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. But we would do them at big locations. We would state fairs. Here we did it at Universal. So it would always be at really cool locations. So I did that for a few years. But while I was doing it, we would always have film crews and stuff with us. Like when the players would come out, because they would shoot that for NBA.com, that sort of thing. And I was still, I've always shot content. I have a degree in media production, so I've always been a photographer, filmmaker, that sort of thing. So I would always shoot stuff too. And I started just having the idea of like, oh, I'm having players come out. I'm doing interviews with them. I should start filming them and putting them online somehow. This was like 2006-ish. So like internet video was not huge at the time. I started doing interviews just on these little, do you remember, man, what were they called? It was like these little video cameras that came in these little, what was the brand? It was this brand that was really hot for this hot second.
Were they the ones that you could take underwater, or just like kind of disposable camera?
I think
kind
a few of them could, but it was like the first little video recorder. There was just this little video.
I had a little Sanyo that was like that. That was just like this big.
Literally had one button on it, and it shot video, little low grade video. So I would use those. Record videos with like Clyde Drexler or like Kenny Smith, Dominique Wilkins, and I would put them up either on my website or on the NBA Nation, our like Facebook page. And I started doing that. Our bosses started to take note because people started watching them, and they asked me to do that the following years. I hosted this thing for probably 7 years in a row, each summer. And so each year they started giving me more responsibility as far as like interviews and that sort of thing. So we started filming them. Then like the third year it was like, hey, let's hire a camera person and do that. Okay, so then we had a camera person the entire time. The production started getting bigger. Then when it eventually got to the point of like, I don't think I want to host anymore, they offered me a job to be the coordinator of like social media content, dealing with the news media, that sort of thing. So I stayed with the tour, producing content for them as we were going. That transitioned to, oh, okay, you've done this for a few years. We want you to do this at All-Star Game. Mm-hmm. We want you to do this at the NBA Finals. So each time they would have like these huge events, I would go to that city, create content for like the week or the weekend. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what that job was.
So you were like on the bleeding edge of the NBA's like digital outreach and like the huge ecosystem that it is today.
Yeah. Like
with podcasts and every NBA player having their own show and podcast and all that stuff.
It's funny that you say that. I was actually thinking about this the other day and like, yeah, I not to toot my own horn, but I literally was one of the first people with the NBA that was putting up video content around their events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and talking about how baseball has dropped the ball in that regard. Like they were doing like around the same time, 06, 07. Just for fun, I made a mashup of Josh Hamilton's like amazing performance at the home run derby at the All-Star game, and I like mashed it up with the movie The Natural as if he was the new Natural, because he basically closed. That was the last year of the old Yankee Stadium where he did that, and that was meaningful to me as a Yankee fan. And I put up the video. And it had a copyright takedown from MLB Advanced Media, which is their legal department. And I wrote them this like very long-winded, heartfelt counter proposal of like, baseball belongs to people. The events don't belong to you. And they like they restored it and they put it on the official MLB blog, the video. And then I sent the whole story to Lawrence Lessig, who's like a big intellectual property rights like lawyer dude on the internet. Yeah. And he wrote up the whole story of how they were embarrassed by my thing, and they put it up, and then they took it down again. And that was me trying to get baseball to be as forward thinking as basketball was at the time.
Yeah, lawyers are man, they're downers. They're big time. Do you remember when what was the trend where people were doing that dance? Videos of like you would just be doing weird stuff and then it would switch to, and then everybody would be doing Harlem Shake. Yeah, Harlem Shake came, and one year we decided it was at All Star when it was huge. Like the Heat had just done one, so like everybody was wanting to do one. So I got all of the NBA mascots together one year at All Star. The early morning, it was like 7 a.m. in the morning. We ended up getting all of the volunteers that we had for a jam session. Mm-hmm. We did this really cool version of the Harlem Shake with all the mascots. We put it up later that day. It got over 1 million hits. I was super happy.
Which was a lot back then.
Huge, right? Yeah. Huge. And the lawyers made us take it down.
Who owns the Harlem Shake?
Well, the artist who made the Harlem Shake song, like literally came out and told people, "Hey, you're cool. I'm not going to sue anybody. Make these videos. We want it to happen." Yeah. And they were just like, "No, we can't open ourselves up to that liability."
Oh man. Yeah. But again, this is like why. I mean, the fact that you were with the NBA and you were trying this stuff out is literally the reason that the NBA is like 10 times the popularity of
You should call them and tell them that. Yeah.
Did you know Michael Garcia was the OG?
Yeah, guys. Digital... I have proof. I got receipts.
Yeah, this man's got receipts.
Yeah, that was a fun job. It was, I learned a lot. I got to be around the heroes of my childhood. I had posters of Dominique Wilkins on my wall since I was 10 years old. And for like 8 years, I had his phone number, and he knew my name, which like would blow my mind every time I saw him. And
what do you mean for 8 years? Like that's when he changed his phone?
Meaning like the time that I worked with the NBA, like I would have his number because he would come and we would have to arrange stuff. And so, yeah, it was just weird to have Dominique Wilkins' number in my phone.
It's like you would text the human highlight reel for his birthday every year, and then 1 year it's like, oh, it got sent back. It's not his phone anymore.
It makes me sad to think that he would erase my number.
It's so funny that you were doing that at that time, which again was kind of the explosion of Web 1.0. At the same time, I was doing something similar in the like pop culture, nerd culture sphere. I was working as a segment producer for what was called Boing Boing TV. So boingboing.net used to be this like 800-pound gorilla in terms of pop culture on the internet.
Is this like a New York thing or like nationwide?
No, it was here. It was out here.
Okay.
It was a blog, but it was just known for like everything that was viral and nerd culture and like crafty stuff. Like boingboing.net was the website, and they had just launched a daily video series that I was brought on to segment produce for.
Nice.
And so, you know, it would be like Neil Gaiman would be in the studio interviewing with Shenny, who was one of the hosts of the thing, who was like an NPR journalist and one of the Boing Boing people.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I don't know, who's Neil Gaiman? Whatever. I'm just like getting him a coffee and helping out and writing stuff. And then later on, I'm like, oh.
Sandra, he wrote the Sandra.
Oh, that's who that was. But yeah, I did that for whatever, 100 episodes or something like that. And there are all these like weird, like, I inadvertently produced a series with John Hodgman called Spam Masterpiece Theater, where we would do dramatic readings of Nigerian scam emails and like spam things. And it's like there's a Wikipedia page for it, and like, but it's like who do you go to and go, look, that I did that back when that was like the height of Web 1.0 stuff, when 1 million views was a huge deal.
It also kind of stuck with me even after I stopped doing that, of like hosting stuff. Like I didn't know how to continue that, or if I wanted to, like out here, because out here it's like the hosting stuff is like special events, like actory, eventy, movie type, premiere-y, hosty stuff. And I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing that. I like sports. There wasn't a lot of opportunities with sports stuff out here, so I just kind of gave that part of my life up.
It's also hard to top the NBA gig once you did that. Coming from the restaurant stuff to the NBA, such a huge leap. Yeah.
But I'm still a huge NBA fan. Like I look back at that time as a really cool part. If I ever have kids one of these days, it's going to be very cool to talk about that time and tell them all the people I got to interview and spend some time with Kobe, and you know, all these great. LeBron called me a motherfucker one time.
Awesome.
Can I tell that story really quick?
Oh, please do.
Okay, so LeBron, this is like his second year maybe.
Okay.
In Cleveland.
Young LeBron.
Yes. So we had the NBA Nation event in Cleveland at one of their fairs, like this fair that was in downtown, and he was going to come out and make an appearance on the weekend on Saturday for like 2 hours, from like noon to 2. So he shows up. Going crazy. He shows up. We were going to have a dunk contest that he was going to be a judge on. So we sit him down and everything, start the dunk contest. I'm hosting the dunk contest. He's sitting in a little booth with some other judges, but he's on his phone the whole time. This was like, who made the Sidekick? T-Mobile?
Yeah, I think so.
This is Sidekick time. This is when these were out. So he's on his Sidekick texting, just constantly texting while kids are around the barriers like, LeBron, sign this or take a picture with me. He could care less. He's just on his phone texting people. So me on the mic, I kind of see that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to get him involved. So I start asking him questions. He has a microphone. I start asking him questions just to try to get him paying attention. And after a few, I notice he's kind of getting a little annoyed, but I keep doing it. So we ended up getting through the whole thing. He was fine. He ended up being great. But after he left, the NBA people who had mic'd him up for video stuff before came over to me and I was like, hey, you know you pissed him off, right? I was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, well, we have lavalier mics on him, and when you were asking him questions, he put the mic down one time, and he said, this motherfucker keeps asking me questions. So I was like, okay, great. I always have a story of like LeBron called me a motherfucker.
That's pre-polished LeBron.
Totally. And I will say this, like LeBron was not good back then. He has done a 180 as a professional, as a player, as a person. He does a lot of good, so I want to he's not an asshole anymore. Yeah, he seems like a great guy. We had done more events after that, and he got a lot better.
But that statement does seem to come out of another era, like as if an NBA player wouldn't be used to people asking them questions constantly now.
Even his personal life, he's just getting questions constantly from social media.
I'm just a kid from Akron with this motherfucker keep asking me questions.
Yeah.
I saw one of the things that you directed was this kind of experimental film piece involving I don't know, improvisers, including maybe one of our old school Del Close firsthand people, Dave Rosowski. It was called The Group.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that piece?
Sure. The Group was a project back in like 2012-ish, 2013. And it was, you remember Gracie Mercedes?
Yeah.
She was on Triggerfinger with me, and we were writing partners at the time. And she and her husband, ex-husband, Damien, they came from New York. And when they lived in New York, they ended up doing this kind of new agey, self-helpy kind of guru kind of course, one of those things. And the leader of that group ended up being super eccentric and like got involved with their lives and was really weird and creepy.
Is the group code language for the cult?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we took that idea and kind of turned it into this thing of like, okay, this young couple who's wanting to get married, get forced into going to this alternative therapy with this group leader. And so we were going to shoot a proof of concept and then try to sell it. And so we thought, we have all these great people around us. Let's try to raise some money. We did a Kickstarter. We raised like 10 grand. And then everybody at I.O. that we thought could fit, we were like, hey, let's offer them parts and this and that. And then we'll shoot a teaser. And then we'll shoot a full like short film. And so, yeah, we got all our first choices. Our choice for Jackson, who was the like cult leader, we thought Dave Rosowski would be perfect for that. So we offered it to him. And yeah, he was great. He was so great. I mean, obviously we wanted people that can improvise because we wrote a script, but we knew we were going to improvise a lot with these people. And so some of the stuff we got on film was so amazing. Some of the stuff we couldn't use, but we got what we wanted from a really great cast. Nick Bush, Zabeth Russell.
Yeah, she's hilarious.
Who else was in this? Zabeth. Carlos. What was Carlos's last name? He was just in Hentified. Who else do we have in there? Nick was with... Yeah, and then Gracie... Nate Kaywood was the husband in that. So yeah, so we ended up making the short film, pitched it around. It was tough to trying to get some bites. But yeah, we pitched it around a little bit. Nothing ever came of it, unfortunately. I still think it has a lot of potential, like as a show.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Dave is blowing up right now because he just wrote his book.
He did.
And if you take class with him, he sometimes speaks like a
He's
cult
that guy.
leader.
Oh,
yeah.
He's that guy.
Just like the sayings, like feel the feelings that you're feeling at this moment right now, or like your brain is a liar and an asshole, or like all of the Rosowski-isms.
If you didn't know improv and you went to a Rosowski workshop, you would think you were in a cult. Yeah, no doubt. The whole thing about like Dave's thing about the now, that's very culty. Of like, don't think about before or after.
Yeah, we're in Now Town.
We are now town. Yes, that's super cool. That's super David Koreshi. Yeah.
It is, or just the idea that, you know, because of his, he's obsessed with, and rightfully so, with kinesthetics and kinesthetic response. And so when you're in a class with him, he'll go like, look, I know what you're thinking before you do because I'm watching you. Yeah. So I can see what your body wants to do. Are you doing what your body wants to do right now? And anyone who's in an improv scene who does something that he feels is that like inauthentic move, he'll stop them and go, is that what you wanted to do right now? Yes. Is that what you want to do right now? Yes. Is it? No, that's right. It wasn't.
There's nothing more culty than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever done that exercise with him where he'll stand people up in different positions around the stage, and then we'll start a scene, and then it's literally like any body movement that anybody makes, he'll stop them. And we'll talk about that one little body movement of like, what does that tell you? That means you wanted to, did you want to turn around? Did you? And it turns into this huge thing of like, every little body movement means something.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, I think I just flinched.
All right,
Dave.
no. Did you want to stop there?
Yeah.
I don't think you did. I think you wanted to stop here.
Yeah.
Stop there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Dave though.
I mean, I've been talking about cult members. Like I've been a Dave devotee for years. So I was he did his first like in-person masterclass since before the pandemic that I did last weekend. But I took his class for years and years, and this is a thing. It's not just a Rosowski thing. It's like when you have whatever you want to call it, a teacher or a guru that has their own improv style, and you want to practice that style, and then you go out into the general improv world and you do your style, and people who haven't had that teacher are like, I don't know what the hell you're doing right now. And I'm just like, well, I'm being kinesthetically aware, and I'm waiting for my body to tell me what to do. And they're just like, okay, but I'm opening a can of tuna in a scene or something like that. And so you need to be on the same page with these things.
Yeah. It's funny, for Dave, Dave comes from a time where like all the people around him we know who they are. Like they're all on TV and they're all like really famous. And I've always wondered about that. Like we all know what that feels. We all have famous friends now. Like we know how that is, but for Dave, he's this legendary where everybody in the improv world knows who he is, but he's not famous. Right?
Only he's improv famous.
He's improv famous,
which is the name of his show on the West Side.
Yeah, that's right.
Hilarious.
So it's like, but as a person, how does that? I always wondered how that affected him. Like, does he have the jadedness of like, why is everybody else?
I think absolutely he does. Like, and that if you take his class long enough, you hear some of the stories of like, it's not necessarily about resentment, but it's like because of Second City and where he came from and who he was surrounded by, like there was a moment where Oprah wanted to do one of her like little featurettes on him as a life coach, and he just didn't like the way that they wanted to control the process of filming, and he rejected it. And like how he auditioned for Curb Your Enthusiasm 5 separate times because he was a famous improviser, and they kept bringing him on, and he's like, I don't understand why Larry's always so mad. He didn't justify it in the scene. And he's like, maybe I should watch the show. And then watching the show, you'd be like, oh, that's just the character's always like this. I should have known that. But yeah, I definitely do think, and weirdly, like I've been reading Andre Gregory's memoir called This Is Not a Memoir. So he's the guy from My Dinner with Andre, who him and Wallace Shawn had the famous movie that was a 3-hour-long dinner conversation. And he talks about his life as if he were a failure, even though he is one of the most legendary theater directors in history. But to him, is it because he didn't have the continued success? I guess. I mean, also because he was expelled from, like, his career started by being expelled from, like, every major theater that he tried because he was doing all this crazy experimental stuff. And and they were successes, but then the board of directors was like, we don't want this. And they would kick him out, and then he would just be kind of on his own for like years, which probably contributes to like this cult status or like this cool factor of like, oh, this guy's weird, he does like weird stuff. Yeah, I mean, he does all the weird stuff of all the stories that he recounts in My Dinner with Andre, but other things that he did was he's famous for having like, he would have a group rehearse for a play for 14 years, and he would just go, it's not ready yet. Like, we just have to perfect this thing. And in the book, he talks about how it's like, okay, well, we're peeling off the layers of stereotype of the characters and getting to the meat. And I'm like, but how is this a business model of like, we're going to rehearse for 14 years? And the answer is that he had a rich aristocratic dad who was very distant and a terrible dad, but at the same time supported him his whole life and allowed this lifestyle to be a thing where he could rehearse Uncle Vanya and with Julianne Moore, and this amazing cast of actors, convinced all of them that they would never perform it. It was just for fun. They just rehearsed it for like 3 years, like on the daily. And then eventually they invited like 2 or 3 friends to go see it. And then because people couldn't get into this secret Uncle Vanya show, it became this huge hit. But he never intended to put it on because he didn't have to. That's so great. Just these accidents that happen like that where that's how it's supposed to be, He wasn't supposed to be a huge success, maybe. Yeah. My Dinner with Andre was a big failure, apparently, until Siskel and Ebert. Like, at first, nobody saw it, nobody cared, and then Siskel and Ebert, like, made it their, like, best movie of the year, and then everybody wanted to see it, and it was just, like, these little hinges of, like, this one thing happened, and then your life changes is... That's so wild. A lot of the stories in our realm, I feel like. And it's like of a time where I don't know if it could happen like that again. Because, like, is there somebody out there that could put you out like Siskel and Ebert could back in that day, movie-related stuff? Yeah, other than, like, America's Got Talent or something. Yeah. One of these game shows. Yeah.
man, do you listen to the Rewatchables?
I've heard of it.
Rewatchables is The Ringer, Bill Simmons' podcast network.
Yeah,
and they, cult movies. They just basically do a podcast talking about that. And they were just talking about what was the one they just had? It was they were talking about Friday. And some of one of the categories that they have is I think it's alternate casting couch or something like that, where it's like the other people that were offered certain roles, and like they were talking about Friday and all the other people that were offered Chris Tucker's role because Chris, the producer, one of the head of the studio, didn't like Chris Tucker, didn't think he was funny, so like had this list of other people that he thought should have been in, and like Chris Rock was in there, and like anybody famous that was black at the time, like they were on that list, and it's like one decision by that person on Chris Tucker could have just erased Chris Tucker from fame, success.
Yeah.
And it's like, these little micro decisions, the butterfly effect of those decisions can like just wipe out your whole of what you expect your life to be. And I would imagine that's where he is, of like, man, I had this plan for my life to continue creating things like this and put my work out there. And you're stuck on that work that I did 30 years ago.
And at some point, probably when you're too old to make it anymore, you have to surrender all of that stuff, because if it truly is something that you have no control over.
Because I have a little bit. Do you have a little bit of that? I don't know if it's anger.
Of course,
but like, why?
I don't hesitate. I don't hesitate to agree with you, because it's like, you know how hard you've worked at your art form. I know how hard I've worked at my art form, and on some level, psychologically, you feel like, well, that should be enough. Like, I have the chops. I'm good enough to do this.
I just need the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the chance is not within your control.
Yeah.
Unless you're, I don't know, writing a bunch of movies on your own and doing the, like, Jason Segel thing of, like...
But even then, you still have to have somebody give you an opportunity to get that out there.
It's true. You have to be buddies with Judd Apatow and then write your own movie and he'll produce it.
I mean, sure, it has become where, anybody can make a movie with their iPhone, right? But we're still in the place where you got to get eyes on it. And that's the thing. It's like, how do I get eyes on it? And in this town, you either got to know somebody, you got to have money, people got to know you, or there's got to be this connection that is not just as simple as what you said of like, I'm good, I know I'm good, and I know I can do a good job. That's not enough for people.
My buddy who has this syndrome, he's like a lacrosse coach now, but he went through Guildhall, like the most formal British acting training, and was doing big time radio shows in London, and then moved to LA, and his acting career kind of petered out. He said that his agent said to him, hey, you get 1 million followers on Instagram, I will get you a role. And that's that's the whole equation.
Yeah, that's where we are.
That's the whole thing.
I mean, they're even putting it in when they put out, what am I talking about? When agents send stuff out, it literally says on there, like, we need a certain amount of followers or this. Like, that's crazy that we're at that point now.
Yeah, there was a story in the news cycle just a couple weeks ago that I'm forgetting the name of the actress who's like a lead actress, but the whole story was the reason that she wasn't offered these like iconic franchise roles was because she didn't have enough Instagram followers.
Really?
Yeah, that was just the whole thing.
It's so sad. Sadness.
While we're sad, I want to talk about AI a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an artist. You're
Allen Iverson, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. It's so funny. Somebody did this on Facebook when they were talking.
That meme? Are you talking about that meme?
I shared a clip from the podcast,
yeah.
And then the guest, I think it was Jeff Mahalski, was like, here's me talking about AI. And the comment was like, oh, Allen Iverson. And then I used Midjourney, which is one of the AI art tools, to make like a cybernetic Allen Iverson picture. And I posted it under the thing. And I'm like, it's AI.
I saw the dumbest meme, but it was the funniest to me. It was AI is set to replace up to 300 jobs in this so-and-so sector. And then it had a picture of Allen Iverson. It said, why, Allen?
The man needs work.
Yeah.
What are you going to blame him?
Anyways. Yeah.
Have you used Midjourney at all? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
So you know that one of the ways that you can prompt Midjourney, and now prompting is its own like art or science or whatever you want to call it, is you can just put in different kinds of cameras and different kinds of lenses, and it will give you the art you want to reproduce in those styles.
Like as if that camera had taken the photo?
Yes. And so now I'm wondering, as a photographer, whether you feel threatened by this particular mechanism within Midjourney.
I don't because I feel like the type of photography that I do, which is like portraits and stuff like that, I think there's always going to be a need for us because we're already in a place where everybody has a camera, right? Mm-hmm. That happened 10 years ago. And the quality of those cameras has gotten up to the point where you could pass them as professional quality, and we still need regular cameras. Plus, there's something about AI that, like, we have damage to us, right? We have stories. We have things that have happened to us. We have hurt and pain. I don't think AI is ever going to be able to get to that place of using that for art, right? The way that AI filters stuff to create art, I mean, do you know what they do, like the process?
I mean, my understanding of these LLMs, these large language models, is really all it is it's an amalgamation of things that they had inputted into them. So they were allowed to ingest or steal or whatever you want to call it. So say like
every movie ever made, we're going to put it in there, and then that way it has the tools to be able to create
it's more of a movie. My understanding is it's more of a mashup machine than anything else. So it'll give you things, and it'll be reminiscent of styles of artists and photographers that you've seen or that have been in magazines, and then it'll just repurpose these things and combine them. Now then, the scary question is, are humans anything more than that? Like, is there really a divine spark of inspiration in humans, or are we just products of, well, I grew up with this, I saw this, I'm going to put this together with this, and I've made a new thing? Like, are we any better? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I never thought of it that way. I also think I'm not as scared as what AI is gonna do. I am scared about the whole, why the WGA is striking and their whole AI worries. I am worried about that.
Because you could certainly make cheap, crappy television written by AI very easily.
Exactly, and that I think was going to be my point. Is that they're going to try it because studio bosses are stupid and they are cheap, right? And if they can find a way to do stories and writing for cheap, they're going to do it. And they're going to get crappy projects, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's going to happen, and then it's going to flip right back around to regular writers again. I don't know. I just think like AI is going to be more for us to save time, convenience, do stuff that took a long time to do before, but wasn't really part of the creative process. It's more a part of for instance, when I edit photos, my process, say a year ago, is I have to go in and I have to outline your face and then fix everything on your face. Mm-hmm. And then I need to go in and make a mask around each of your eyes and then fix those. Right. And then I have to fix all the blemishes on your face, right? Mm-hmm. And all of that used to be manual where I would have to paint physically over those parts. Now I press a button and AI does it for me instantly. And it saved me so much time. So I the way I'm looking at AI now is more tools like that are going to allow me to do things that took more time than they did, a lot faster. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite as threatened.
So you feel like it's more of a facilitation tool than something that can take your position in the world? Kind of thing.
I'm not quite to the Skynet part yet. Mm-hmm. Do I think we can get there? Yes, but that's more based on the idea of like, I think people are inherently bad, right? That's my basic philosophy of life is like we have to work hard to be good. And so knowing that there's going to be bad people that do dumb shit. And unfortunately, we have a lot of dumb, bad people in charge of a lot of things these days. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be we're going to have problems because of that, not because AI is wanting to take over.
Well, then I guess the question that comes from that is, if people are inherently bad and we created AI and we programmed it with all of our own foibles and weird things, and we give it certain injunctions saying you can't do this, you must do this, like, are we creating something that either will reflect our own terrible nature or decides that we shouldn't be in charge of ourselves anymore because of our terrible nature and just takes over.
See, but don't you think even if AI came and said that, the second thing you just said, if they came and said that, we wouldn't believe the AI. Mm-hmm. We're that dumb. We would not take that answer. Mm-hmm. But yeah, your statement I think is very correct. We are bad, therefore anything we create is going to be bad.
Well, somewhat of a depressing outlook.
Yeah.
What you said about that people have flaws and they have dirt on them, and this is kind of what makes their human character.
Yeah.
Something that we've been exploring on the podcast a whole bunch, and that I keep trying to kind of peck at, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, I talk about improv a lot, and I talk about AI a lot. And for some reason, these two things seem to me, I might be the only one, they seem to be like very related to each other conceptually, because, AI is not funny. AI can't do improv. There's something, like AI can pass a medical exam or a bar exam very easily, but it can't write a funny sketch to save its life. Yeah. And there's some inextricably human thing. I mean, and it may just be the case that like improvisers ain't programming these AI language models, so it never learned how to do this, or that we're just not good enough at recording how we do this on the internet for it to read and understand. Yeah. But I do just think that there's something human about improv that kind of defies AI's understanding.
Yeah, I think there's something about funny and comedy that there's not an equation for that. I don't think we've fully figured it out, like what exactly is funny. Mm-hmm. I think, and this is not to insult UCB at all, but UCB has like an equation of like, hey, we know how to be funny. We're going to teach it to you. Mm-hmm. Find the unusual thing, and then boom, 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 you just keep, right? They found that equation. Mm-hmm. And they teach that, and it's able to get people to understand comedy to a sense. But it doesn't make funny people, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make you funnier. It just makes you understand kind of what comedy is. I think funny is just this ethereal thing that we don't have values for. Like, we don't know the equation of how that works. So I think we can't program an AI to know that. Like, we can put all of the comedy, every comedy that's ever written into the AI, but do you think it would spit out original funny material back?
I mean, it doesn't. When I did an exercise where I asked ChatGPT to like form a theoretical improv team and then transcribe what they did. Yeah. And it was all like whoopee cushions and joy buzzers. It was, and rubber chickens. It was just total nonsense, stereotypical garbage.
Yeah. And so I think humor is something that is human. Do animals have humor? Do we know that?
That's a good question.
Because it seems like dogs laugh sometimes, right?
My 15-month-old has a great sense of humor, so I would assume that if an animal had like, a 4 or 5-year-old intellect, that they would get some jokes.
I feel like when you see like a fox being rubbed on their belly and they're like, I feel like that's laughing almost. Mm-hmm. So I feel like some animals probably have it, but like, it seems like a human-centric thing. Kind of like critical thinking, it's kind of the same plane of animals can't quite do that. Apes can be fun. Coco used to tell jokes.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So, I mean, there is humor, I guess, in the animal world.
Yeah, and I think because it is, in my view, humor is mostly a defense mechanism that allows us to deal with pain and trauma. Like there's the PTSD part of it, which is just like reliving the bad experience so that you can avoid it and have survival benefits. Yep. And then there's the humor way of coping with it, which is making it something that tickles you so that you don't have to be depressed when you process it.
Let me reframe it to make it less damaging to me.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. The damage, I think, and that's also a thing that's really hard to gauge is like, funny people are damaged up to a certain point. Because if you're damaged like this much, it's hard to be funny, right? People that are really, really messed up.
Yeah.
So it's this fine line of like, you got to be messed up just and the right kind of messed up. There's certain things that you can't have done to you that will make you funny, right?
Yeah. If you're a full sociopath, it's harder.
It's hard
because then you want to control it.
Yes. And then the sociopath thing about like being able to read emotions and like feel like it's hard for them to be funny.
That being said, I'll allow Bill Cosby his lane of how he managed to succeed in that.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like that guy was a sociopath, but
100%.
super funny.
Yeah. He was in
also
control.
a relatable funny. Like the Cosby Show is all about like the universal family. Everything was universal about that show, which is so weird from a sociopathic rapist.
Yes, that he set himself up as a friendly family character who happened to be a gynecologist, but never mind about that.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. I totally forgot he was a gynecologist. Holy shit. Wait, was he gynecologist or OBGYN? Or are those the same thing?
I think he was a gynecologist.
Okay. Are they the same thing, by the way?
That's a good question.
Or is an OBGYN
Comment on this video if you're
please.
an OBGYN.
Now that I think about it, I think an OBGYN is a gynecologist that delivers babies.
That delivers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're like gynecologists are just like it's about the process, right? They're
Not
like,
the results, yeah.
They like there's like people that study caves and then there's spelunkers. OBGYNs are like, no, I don't just want to learn about them. I want to get in there.
Yeah, we're going to see what's in there.
We're going to see what's in there. Now, AI. How does AI help gynecologists? That's an interesting question. Although I did see this thing on TV the other day about how brain tumors and cancer of the brain, they found this AI software model that back in the day when people used to get brain tumors of a certain kind that had this certain specific disease, they would have to analyze it and send samples off and wait 6 weeks for the results to get back. And during that time, the tumors would grow sometimes double, right? And the people that would have these diseases would have 8 months to live. So any time is valuable, right? So they found this software, this AI software that was developed that cuts that down to 3 minutes. They can literally do it in the operation where they take a sample, put it in this machine, and the AI will do everything that took fucking 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And now takes 3 minutes.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Stuff like that is really going to change the game.
Maybe we should just be less employed and like give over some of this stuff to AI.
I'm cool with it, man.
Right.
How much worse could it get?
On that note, I want to thank Michael Garcia for coming. Thanks, man. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
This has been AI Affected, a podcast about AI and occasionally about retro NBA viral videos. Thanks for coming.
Show upcoming.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Do you have a thing, or you just want me to
just
talk about it?
Yeah, because I don't have it right now. I just...
Are we talking about Filtered?
Yes.
All right. If you're watching on the live stream, and I know you are because otherwise you're watching this later, stick around for Filtered 90211, which is a terrific podcast, which is coming up next, which is a bunch of interesting outlooks on life, on the life of being an actor in Los Angeles, which we touched on a little bit, which can be rather haphazard at times, and also AI's role in writing scripts and creating productions for actors who want to express themselves. So stick around for Filtered. This has been AI Affected. I'm Russ Gooberman.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
Good stuff.
That was fun. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? Sorry we're running late. I forgot that I'm supposed to start at 10 a.m. now. It's my fault because I scheduled you when we were on the 11 o'clock and we agreed to move back an hour. I was already here at 11, so it didn't matter.
How do you feel about the stuff that they're talking about, like the voice, like being able to recreate actors' voices and stuff for stuff?
Yeah, it's super. Like it's The scary thing about, or not the scary thing, but the disingenuous thing about it is like one of the main companies that was doing that, they were originally positioning themselves as like they helped recreate Val Kilmer's voice as like a PR stunt. Yeah. And then they're positioning themselves as like, this is only for demos and for the development process, and obviously you're going to use real voice actors later on in the process, and then but what they're really doing. They're really just going to replace everything.
Yeah, I didn't know it was to the point that it was, so I'm really glad that WGA are taking a stance, because I didn't know that was already an issue. They're already trying that shit.
I get ads for this stuff all the time where they're like, we can emote with 800 different emotions and emphasize different words, and can you tell that this commercial is being done by an AI right now? And I'm like, oh, scary.
Jeez.